Welcome to the Fly Fishing Insider Podcast, where each week we speak with brands, icons, innovators, and trailblazers within the fly fishing industry, exploring both the successes and failures they've encountered along the way to become who they are today. But first, if you have not yet subscribed to the podcast or joined our email list, please do so by going to the flyfisherinsiderpodcast.com, or you can also find us on Instagram at flyfisherinsiderpodcast. Now let's begin. Welcome to the Fly Fishing Insider Podcast. Today our guest is Jeff Arterburn. Jeff is the president of the Gila Rio Grande chapter of Trout Unlimited. Jeff is here today to tell us more about Trout Unlimited's restoration of the Gila trout in New Mexico. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Greg. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, we're excited as well that you're here. We're excited for this little mini-series that we're putting together with Trout Unlimited just to kind of feature the three amazing stories, and you are one of these stories. So, Jeff, you know what? Why don't we jump right into it and tell us a bit about what you guys are doing in New Mexico?
Sure thing. So, New Mexico is home to two native trout species. The Continental Divide runs right through our state, right through our region where we're at. And so we've got the Rio Grande River that has its native fish is the Rio Grande cutthroat trout. And then we've got the Gila River that's a tributary of the Colorado River and is a Pacific draining stream. And the Gila River has an amazing native trout, really unique, beautiful, precious, and in a species that was almost lost. And so there's been an ongoing recovery project to bring these fish back, and our Trout Unlimited chapter has been involved in a variety of projects, including the one that we'll talk about today, which involves volunteers and citizen science in monitoring habitat in a tributary of the Gila where Gila trout have been brought back.
Excellent. You know what, Jeff? Let's discuss how these trout have almost been lost or extinct. Let's touch base on how that happened, and if you could paint a picture for us, because I'm sure not everyone's aware as to how this is the devastation that took place.
Yeah, you bet. Well, so the Gila is really a remote region. A lot of people have no idea that there's the forests and mountains like this down here in southwestern New Mexico and southeastern Arizona, the area, very, very mountainous. I mean, you might know about Geronimo and the stories of the Apaches who were among the last Native Americans, who this was their homeland. And people recognized early on that these trout were something special. They called them speckled trout or mountain trout. And they recognized they were unique, and they were very, very prolific. And so they were an important part of, people, the early settlers and miners and the time they were in here. And so, like many things, there was lots of harvesting and over harvesting in many cases. And then at the start of the last century, when game and fish departments were stocking fish around, they stocked rainbow trout. Well, rainbow trout hybridized with Gila trout, and very effectively. And so that, as well as with brown trout and competing for resources and predation, all of those factors started pushing the Gilas back further and further into the headwaters. And so they started recognizing. They actually tried setting up hatcheries in the 1920s to try and help produce populations, but they were difficult to raise in the hatcheries, much more difficult than rainbows were. And so by the 1950s is when they were first recognized scientifically as a unique species. And by that time, the number of streams they were in was really, really, really limited. And so they some of the streams were then shut off to fishing that held these fish. And when the Endangered Species Act came about in 1973, the Gila trout were listed as endangered and provided the most highest level of protection. And so most of the streams that then remained with these trout were very remote, lots of very high headwater streams. So with the forestation and the way fire suppression policies and all that all contributed to the fact that severe wildfires became then a major threat. You might think here in the Southwest, drought is one of our biggest concerns, and it is. It's a major concern. But these fires have been so destructive and large scale, and so it seemed like each time they'd make headway in bringing back some of the population, there'd be a massive wildfire, and several of the drainages, literally they had to rescue fish, transfer them to another stream, or get them into the hatchery, and just in order to save the species. Because right now there's been accepted 5 different lineages of Gila trout that each have their own unique genetic profile and different features that some of which are expected to confer some advantage for them in their survivability. They've been living in these mountains and these canyons for thousands of years and able to survive through all of it. And so they're a really unique, beautiful fish. They're they're kind of a golden bronze colored with fine spots. Just absolute gorgeous fish. And while in many of the small streams, they may not get very big, but given the right conditions and there's lots of food in most of these streams, that you'll find trophy Gila trout as well.
Awesome. What's a trophy Gila trout? What's the size of a trophy Gila trout?
So I would say a trophy is going to be anything over 12 inches. I've caught fish pushing 18 inches. And in the hatchery and where they grow in the brood stock, they'll grow up to 4 pounds. And so through programs now, the hatcheries are providing for recreational stocking, and they're stocking some of these, so that the chance of a new world record Gila trout is always just around the corner.
I bet it is. Jeff, I got 2 things to ask you. The first was, in 1953, you said that these trout were endangered, right? And it's now 2020.
Well,
go ahead.
In 1973 is when the Endangered Species Act was implemented. But they were actually recognized. The threat to these fish was recognized quite a while earlier. But the Endangered Species Act provided the most the most stringent protections possible. And so they've been off limit for fishing. You couldn't fish for Gila trout until they were downlisted in 2006 because of progress made and the expansion to some other streams that greater than the original set of streams. The goal of the program is to have at least each lineage duplicated in more than one stream, so that the threat of losing that entire species with one fire is minimized.
Perfect. You just answered my question. So definitely with that, I want to touch base. And the next thing I wanted to ask you is, when and what did what did you guys and what did your chapter specifically do to get involved and help push this fish and the lifespan of this fish along further? Can you tell us about the great work you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been involved in a variety of different aspects of the recovery. Been participating in recovery team meeting for many years. But when we formed, and really, I think that the power of Trout Unlimited and the opportunity of Trout Unlimited is that it expands your ability to reach and get more, help people become aware to support agencies' work in recovering these species. And there's frequently opposition to efforts to bring back native species when people are afraid of the consequences, afraid of what it could do to their ability to fish for rainbow trout or brown trout, which you can do anywhere, but gila trout, this in a little bit of Arizona, the only place you're going to get to do that. So our chapter, one of the projects that I think we're really proud of is we started a citizen science project that involves volunteers, people from all walks of life, school kids, college kids, everyone who's interested in this. Our project is in Willow Creek, which is a tributary to the Gila River, and it's a stream that in 2012 was devastated by the Whitewater Baldy fire. This fire burned almost 300,000 acres of the Gila forest, and the stream had healthy populations of rainbow and brown trout that were extirpated by the aftermath of it. And so out of that disaster became an opportunity. And so we've been working with a variety of with the agencies, with Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, Game and Fish, and funding agencies. Our chapter's been able to help raise funds from organizations like the Western Native Trout Initiative, the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance, and others. And so those funds have done things, including building a barrier downstream to protect the upstream Gila trout population from non-native rainbow trout moving up and then bringing in hybridization possibilities again. We've received funding to develop several informational presentations, a poster on Gila trout that gives information about their range and facts about them, and we set up an informational kiosk that gives information about the restoration effort that's taken place in Willow Creek, so that people coming into the area, they may not have heard about it before, but they can see and read about it, and now they have the opportunity to fish for Gila trout. So our project, because this stream system has been so damaged by the fires, is that we've been looking at it after the post recovery. One of the biggest vulnerabilities is these watersheds no longer have the capacity to hold back as much water as they did before the fire, and so the flood events tend to be much larger and more severe, bringing along erosion and damage to the stream. And of course, these fish, they need pools, they need spawning gravel, all those things that trout need to thrive. And so we started this habitat assessment and monitoring program. Using volunteers, you have to simplify your methods and make it straightforward. Make sure that the data that's recorded is useful data, reliable data, and repeatable data. And so that over the past several years, we've been doing this for 3 years now, taking groups of volunteers and doing an assessment in the spring and then one again in the fall, and looking at how things are changing with regards to the habitat that's available then for Gila trout to thrive in there. And that in turn then is helping us to inform the agencies of where to focus limited efforts for restoration, and what are some of the urgent needs to do. And so right now we're looking ahead to using natural methods for providing improved stream habitat. Some of the things that we're
let's touch base on that a bit in a bit more detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, like are you bringing in gravel and creating gravel beds? Because I'm assuming that when a fire goes through an area, it just devastates the river, dries the river up. Maybe water was used as a resource to extinguish the fire as well. I mean, I'm assuming all those actions took place, right? And to recreate those spawning gravel beds and stuff like that, are you bringing in gravel for that, or are you guys,
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
that's an excellent question, and the answer to that specific one is we haven't done that yet because that it actually the as it's eroded, the geography, the geomorphology of the system
mhm,
is has, I mean, the stream is cut down. There's parts where several feet lower down from where the stream channel originally was. It's cut into those. One consequence is in some cases it has opened up, and it's provided some viable spawning gravel. But on the flip side, and this in some of the smaller tributaries come in where burning was severe, it's a constantly eroding system. So and so that one of the things that needs to be done is to kind of check the influx of of loose sediments eroding in, because what they'll do is they'll fill the pools, and so you don't have the depth you need for fish to survive both through the summers when temperatures are high, and in the winters when the they're under snow and they'll freeze. And so the kinds of things that we're looking to implement, in addition to willow planting and all that, which is hugely important because the willows will help stabilize the banks, as well as providing shade that keeps the water cool and avoids those higher temperatures. But we're really looking at hopefully to be able to implement some beaver dam analogs. There were populations of beavers in this stream section before, and actually some really nice fishing habitat through the beaver ponds that they have. And so, but the fire, of course, destroys a lot of their food sources, and so these beaver dam analogs are a really promising way to initiate some of the changes that they do, and then accompanied with restoration, planting, providing more food, so you can encourage then recolonization by the beavers. That and other in-stream habitat structures using natural materials. One thing I should mention is that this area of Willow Creek where we're at is it's national forest, but it buttresses right against wilderness. I mean, the wilderness boundary is just right there at the edge, and so that has a whole other set of constraints, limitations on what you can do in wilderness because of the rules associated with wilderness. And there's also a small section of private land in here too. So there's a variety of different circumstances and stakeholders that are involved in this Gila trout project.
Yeah, it sounds very complex, but it sounds like you've done some amazing work as well. On the other hand, is this project, is it complete in your mind, or what would you like to see going forward?
No, we're really in the early stages. There's a lot of work to be done. In fact, our habitat monitoring has shown that we're losing critical pool habitat because of the current erosion problems that are and so our actions, the planned actions, we're working with other groups, and to raise funds that to be used towards the restoration project. A lot of the grants that we compete for require matching funds, and it's like so it's a concerted long-term effort, but we really feel hopeful for the outcome for this stream, and the methodology that we've developed for using volunteers to collect stream habitat data can be expanded to other streams, other fire damaged streams, other target restoration streams, or any area in which you need some information about how that stream, how the hydrology of that stream is responding. We have lots of remote streams. One of the other watersheds that we're looking for that was also, most of the non-native trout were extirpated by that same fire is this Whitewater Creek system, and it's over 21 miles of stream, very, very remote backcountry, but some great habitat and some vulnerable habitat in there. And so our hope is that our methodology with this assessment plan that we are implementing can be extended to some of these other streams.
Absolutely, and I don't see why it couldn't be. You know what, Jeff? I know you guys take donations as well, and I know you're looking for people to help you with those grants. Where can someone get a hold of you guys if they wanted to?
You bet. Yeah, we're with Trout Unlimited. We're a full 501(c) organization. We every single dollar we take in is dedicated, goes towards these efforts of restoration. And so probably the easiest way is to get contact with me by email. That you can reach me at jeffgilatu@aol.com. And people can keep up with with some of the projects and happenings, events that are going on by looking at our Facebook page. So if you search for Gila, which is GILA, Rio Grande, Trout Unlimited, you'll find us there.
Jeff, I'm definitely going to make sure I put all that contact info in the show notes. But before I let you go, what is something that we can do today? What is something that listeners can do today on their own to protect the Gila trout?
Right. That's the critical question. Donation of whether it's resources or your time. We'd love to have volunteers. We've had a variety of people interested in what we're doing come and participate. We've had people from the Trout Unlimited chapters in Arizona come on over, and so we're really open to that. I think and so we'd appreciate any kind of support that people are able to provide. But beyond that, it's playing a part in the education. And very often I'm approached by people who they say, well, why do native trout matter? What's so important? A rainbow or brown trout that I can catch most places across the world, they'll pull my line just as hard. Why should I care about Gila trout? And I think once you see these trout in their natural setting, that becomes that answers itself. We have it's a really unique region down here, lots of incredible diverse biodiversity and species that you'll encounter here that you won't find any place else. And the Gila trout are part of that. We're advancing. Our senators are planning to introduce legislation to declare the Gila wild and scenic. And so, people who can offer support for that, that's really helpful. But with regards to education too, we work with kids. This June 6th will be the 9th annual Aldo Leopold Kids Fishing Derby that we participate in, and this is an opportunity. You want to catch one of those world record Gila trout, that's probably one of the best times to do it. So, but we're out there, we're helping the kids, learn about and appreciate Gila trout because they're the future. And so, that by sharing our enthusiasm and our knowledge about these trout with the kids, we're encouraging them and enthusing them. They're the future, the people who will be working for the agencies, the conservation, and the people recreating in these areas who are going to be, critical for keeping these and other native trout thriving into the future.
Excellent, Jeff. You summed it up very nicely. So I want to thank you for sharing your story and for sharing what the amazing work that Trout Unlimited is doing down in New Mexico. So listeners, I want to thank you guys as well. You've been listening to Trout Unlimited's story. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Welcome to the Fly Fishing Insider podcast. Today, our guest is Melly Whiting, who is the National Coordinator Legal Project for Trout Unlimited. She's here today to tell us about the great work that Trout Unlimited is doing in the Colorado Windy Gap project. Melly, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No worries. We're excited that you're here. You're doing some great work down in Colorado, and I want to touch base on that and bring the listeners up to speed as to some of the work that you guys are doing. In particular, you have one project as the Colorado Project Legal Counsel that you are. You have one project that you've spent a ton of time on. Can you let us know a bit about what that project is?
Yes, sure. The project is the name is the Windy Gap Bypass, also known as the Colorado River Connectivity Channel. The project is basically trying to turn an on-channel reservoir that is having a lot of impacts downstream in the Colorado River into an off-channel reservoir, meaning that we're going to build a channel around reconnecting the Colorado upstream and downstream of that reservoir, eliminating a lot of the problems that reservoir has created over the years.
Can you get into trying to paint this picture, what are some of the problems that have occurred and what is the problem that is exactly the issue here that you guys are addressing?
Sure. So this whole area is the headwaters of the Colorado River. It's where the Colorado River is born. About 70 to 75% of the flows of the Colorado River are actually transferred, they're taken out of the river and into across the Continental Divide into the Denver metro area in northern Colorado to supply people that live there, mostly for municipal supplies, some agriculture as well. So that's a big chunk of water taken out, and that has been going on for many, many years. The projects that take the water, for the most part, started in the 1950s, before there was any type of environmental regulation or any type of review. And that's been going on for quite a while. Now, in the mid-'80s, a new project was added to that pile of projects, and that is called the Windy Gap project, where Windy Gap Reservoir is the main feature. Again, there's a reservoir that's plucked right in the middle of the Colorado River. And there are a couple of other projects that are being proposed to take a little bit more water. When those projects came along, I started working on this in 2006. There was a lot of controversy. Trout Unlimited joined forces with Grand County and other entities to oppose what they were proposing to do, and realized in the end that reservoir and some of the things that were going on right now, before any new projects are added, are really what's having a huge impact on the river. So after about 8 years of fighting with the project proponents, we ended up coming to an agreement to what we call fix the river. And that means doing a whole bunch of projects to turn this river that used to flow much bigger, and the reality is that it flows much smaller now, but adjust the channel and adjust conditions to make sure that the river still functions well and produces a good fishery. The Windy Gap Bypass, or connectivity channel, is a linchpin that holds all of those restoration projects together, upstream and downstream the reservoir. So that's kind of a little bit of the background. You got a whole bunch of people that were fighting with each other for a number of years and saw a way through to fix some of the problems that we're seeing, and that's what the Bypass project is all about.
Sounds like you guys are coming together a bit. But what's some of the data showing? Like, what's the data showing on the how it's affecting the fish in the population of the fish within that region?
Specific to the reservoir, our wildlife agency did a study looking at data before and after the reservoir was built. And what we found was that we've lost about 38% of the microinvertebrate species, including the giant stonefly, which is pretty important. Yeah. We've lost a native sculpin that used to live downstream of where the reservoir is now, gone. And we have had a significant decline in the trout fishery.
So, Mili, when you say gone, I'm trying to picture this myself. Like, we're talking extinct gone, or are we just talking like severely diminished?
No, I mean gone. So pretty much gone.
Wow, that's it.
You may find a sculpin drifting along that came from who knows where, but there is no sculpin population there anymore.
I can definitely see why this is so important to you guys. What are some of the ways that you're restoring? Can you get into the nitty gritty of how you guys are together collaboratively as a group? How Trout Unlimited is coming together in restoration and fixing this project and working together to get it up to a better level or a better standard.
Yeah, sure. And again, we're talking about, the entire Grand County. You're talking about over 40 miles of river. There are different efforts going on in different parts of the county, different parts of the river. There is an effort upstream of Windy Gap Reservoir that is called Learning by Doing. Pretty much same players. You have a combination of East Slope water providers. So you have Denver Water and Northern participating. You have Grand County participating, Parks and Wildlife, or Wildlife Agency participating, and Trout Unlimited. And we've done one project upstream in a tributary of the Colorado River. We restored about a mile of the channel. So we basically created a channel within a channel, a low flow channel, with riffles and pools and the right habitat. And what that has done is really alleviated some of the huge temperature problems extreme temperature problems that we have up there. We had a year, well, not even, so weeks after we built it, after we did the channel work, we saw about a 300% increase in fish. It's gone down a little bit, it's regulated a little bit, but we're seeing quite a bit more fish than we ever saw in this location. So that's one example. There are similar projects going on downstream. We're basically just, again, working with making the channel a good place for habitat, even though we have lower flows, because the lower flows are a reality. We're not going to be able to change that. So we're adjusting the channel to the new conditions.
Yep, absolutely. What are some of the challenges that you guys face while doing that?
It's, river restoration is a difficult proposition, from a physical standpoint. One of the things that we deal with all the time is, do you fix public or private? We have private-public partnerships formed. Some people feel we should only fix the river where it's public fishing. We shouldn't fix it on private. Some feel that fish don't know whether they're on private or public. So that's an issue that comes up that we've been able to work it through partnerships. Yeah. Coming up with the money to do all the things that we need to do. There is quite a bit of money available in the wings out there, but there's a couple of lawsuits that is halting release of those funds for restoration. Those are some of the challenges. It's these things take time, but fortunately, we were seeing really immediate results. for the projects that we've done so far. And now we're looking forward to the bypass, which is going to be the big one. That one is an $18 million project. We are about $2 million away from having the full amount raised. Combination of grants from federal government, state government, Northern Water, private contributors. We're getting there in construction. We're hoping construction will begin in 2021.
I hope it begins sooner, but it sounds like you guys are on the right track and you're definitely doing the right things. So, you mentioned about the funds and stuff, and that you're trying to always raise funds to help expedite these projects along a bit further. If one wanted to get involved with these funds or to donate funds, where would they do so?
They can go on. Probably the easiest way to contribute funds is by going to the Learning by Doing website, and it's www.learningbydoing.org.
Perfect. I'm definitely going to make sure that I put that in the show notes later. I did want to ask you though, where do you see this project? Like, paint the picture for us, like what the ideal situation is, where you'd like to, 5 years out from now, what you'd like to see happen with this project, and what people can do now to help this project grow and get to where it needs to go.
Well, I think that, big picture, people need to conserve the water. People need to stop irrigating Kentucky bluegrass. This is particularly true in the Denver metro area. Still, about 50% of the water that is going over the Continental Divide ends up in people's lawns. It's not a good use of water. I mean, we all need to have pretty landscape, but there are alternative ways to do it. Kentucky bluegrass, particularly in big quantities, are sucking up these rivers dry. So that's number one, the big picture. I think other than that, the bypass project, the new channel that we're building around the reservoir is going to be open to the public. And for fishing, we're going to have educational materials in there. Just go out there, take a look at it. We'll probably have willow planting and some things that a lot of this stuff obviously has to be, the construction itself is going to have to be done by professionals. Mm-hmm. But there's going to be a lot of side projects such as willow planting and other on-site projects that we've done elsewhere and have been really successful in bringing people together, learning more about what's going on with the river, and maybe catching a fish or two.
You know what, Mealy, I did want to ask you, is there any last words that you want to say to the listeners before I let you go?
No, thanks for having me. I think, we need to continue to have these conversations about working together to keep these rivers going. There's climate challenges out there, and things are not going to get any easier. So we feel this is a really good way to work with partners to fix problems as opposed to drawing lines from the sand. And so, to the extent people can encourage that kind of approach, it's always welcome.
I appreciate that. And definitely make sure that I put all the details in the show notes as well. So I want to thank you for being a guest today on our show. And listeners, I want to thank you guys as well. This is another episode of our Trout Unlimited podcast. Welcome to the Fly Fishing Insider podcast. Today, our guest is Toner Mitchell. Toner is the Trout Unlimited New Mexico Water and Habitat Program Director. Here today to tell us more about his story is Toner. Toner, welcome to the show.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for having me.
No problem. We're excited. This is part of our Trout Unlimited series that we've put together here. So I want you to share all the great work that you're doing currently as the Water and Habitat Program Director. What is it that you guys are doing out there in New Mexico?
Well, generally, everybody in the audience might know that Trout Unlimited is a volunteer-based organization. And in New Mexico, we have a lot of volunteer members. I began as one of them. And over time, we're involved in everything from veterans fishing to youth education. We also have a lot of passion for native trout recovery. In northern New Mexico, where I live, we have the Rio Grande cutthroat trout, which when I grew up, they weren't necessarily plentiful, but you could find them just by driving your car. You could get to a place and fish for them. Now it's not that rosy anymore. You have to climb high in the mountains and try and find them there. So native trout, and really it's catch as catch can. If we see an opportunity to use trout or cold water fisheries conservation as a tool to help communities achieve their goals, we're all for it. I was with the chapter. I'm now a staff person, one of 3 in New Mexico, and we're pretty committed to working with rural communities in northern New Mexico, traditionally very poor, in some cases happily poor, in that, agrarian communities, very, very pastoral scenes. Most recently, I've been involved with a community called Cuesta in New Mexico, which is actually kind of a bedroom community to a mine that in 2014 closed down. At the same time, the town church had fallen to the ground, and not to the ground, one of its walls collapsed, and the village was pretty much at a kind of an existential crossroads, and took a look at themselves and said, how are we going to get back up, and how are we going to recreate ourselves? How are we going to diversify our economy? And at that time, I had collaborated with another Trout Unlimited chapter president to notice that their kind of community river, the Red River, could use about 2 miles of restoration to improve fishing. And if nothing else, it would give the community some place to go and enjoy better fishing, but also it promised to be an economic driver, which the village really embraced.
That sounds pretty awesome what you guys did there for this community. Now, when the mine closed, were many residents still left within the community to like benefit from this?
From the mine?
Yeah.
I think when it closed, the mine employed 300 people from northern New Mexico. Most of those would have been from Cuesta. There are several other villages around there, but the mine employed about 300 people from Cuesta. The population of Cuesta at the time, I believe, was 1,700. Okay. Very low population.
Yeah. So how did the town were they welcoming to when you guys came in there and started doing the great work that you're doing, or walk me through that?
Well, we just put out a film that attempts to tell the story. The story, to be honest, Greg, when I began working in Cuesta, it was a river restoration project. I had no idea that it would blossom into so many other ideas and ways of improving the community. But we got in there, and Cuesta had the benefit of having I think, a pretty magnanimous mine owner. The owner of the mine is Chevron Mining, related to the oil company. Mm-hmm. And Chevron, like Cuesta, had seen the writing on the wall. The mine had been open since 1919. It was getting old. It wasn't producing like it used to. And everybody kind of suspected that it would close permanently at some point in the early 2000s. So the town and Chevron had the foresight to negotiate kind of a trust fund, which the mining company funded beginning, I think, in 2005. with the other chapter president, I was a volunteer chapter president at the time.
Mm-hmm.
With a chapter president nearby, I collaborated with him, and we said, okay, we'll put up $10,000, and this fund that the village and the mine company put together, they pitched in some as well, and the New Mexico Game and Fish Department pitched in a huge amount. They tripled that contribution, and we ended up being able to fund a really big river restoration project on a stream that had been kind of channelized due to flood control work, and it had been contaminated somewhat by the mine over the century. So basically, we had this brand new asset, which was a piece of recovered river. And all of a sudden we said, oh, well, what are we going to do with it now? I mean, we just going to fish it, or we should do something that is economically beneficial to the community. So Trout Unlimited, kind of at this point, I became staff with TU,
Mm-hmm.
and we launched this program called the Upper Rio Grande Community Initiative, which was intended to seek conservation outcomes with economic benefits, which in the case of Cuesta meant, how are we going to take this new asset and monetize it to the benefit of the community? So we started looking into, how do we attract fishing people to Cuesta? How do we show the world Cuesta's gifts as a place to come camping, to come visiting, and to get, we'd also had the recent designation of a national monument in the nearby Rio Grande Gorge, which is an amazing fishery by any standard. Compared to Montana, New Zealand, it's just an amazing place. So we had all these natural gifts, and all of a sudden TU said, well, we need to help this community besides just restoring a river. We need to make sure that their recreation infrastructure is where they want it to be. And of course, when your question was how is this accepted by the community basically just said, we just want to be in charge. We want to be at the wheel. So TU just performed a function of, I'm a long-time fishing guide, so I was able to provide some knowledge on trout fisheries and such, but it really was the community that said, we want this, we want that, we don't want that, and so, we formed kind of an economic development team, and we've been working on it since, I think, 2015. And we've done, with the village, we're funding a number of things, one of which was the video I told you about, which is getting nationwide exposure and really kind of putting Cuesta on the map. We've been able to get a couple other river restoration projects funded. And in association with that, we've gotten funding to get the stream restoration engineer to train Cuesta folks who used to work on the mine driving machinery. So we're retooling their skills so that they can move boulders around the stream and install stream restoration structures.
That's pretty freaking amazing, Toner. I mean, that's above and beyond it and what I anticipated, like Trout Unlimited, like TU to do, just with the community incentive and whatnot, and the habitat program part of it. Like, that's just, I don't know. I'm speechless, but I want to know why, like what made you guys want to reach out and do more than just this? There's had to be a reason. Like, did you walk us through that?
Well, I think it happened. I really think it was organic.
I believe
I'm from New Mexico,
mm-hmm.
and one of my favorite fisheries in the world is that Rio Grande Gorge. So I've spent my whole life going through that town, seeing the town, enjoying the town, but not really understanding what made it tick. It was just where I was driving through, get a breakfast burrito, go to the trailhead, and go into the gorge and have a great fishing day.
Mm-hmm.
So I really didn't know anything about Cuesta or even care, besides the fact that it was the place near where I went fishing. But getting into this project, I realized that a lot of our fisheries, or I would hazard to say all of them, all the fisheries that we love around the country, there is some community that watches over it, one way or the other. They either do it well or they don't do it well. But it's some community that is tied to that resource for better or worse. So when if you can enhance that resource, you have a good chance of enhancing that community. And if you enhance that community, same thing, the resource might benefit. So some of it was a shot in the dark. As over the years, I've gotten to know a lot of the village leaders, and I've just said, here's an idea I have. What do you guys think? And sometimes they go, nah, we can't pull that off here. And, other times they go, well, let's give it a shot. I talked about the Rio Grande cutthroat trout earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The seed of the video I talked about as well was that I was going around the community. We do this thing every year where the Game and Fish Department shows up at the Rio Grande Gorge with a truckload of fingerling Rio Grande cutthroat trout, and we gather a bunch of people together. They give us a bag full of water and oxygen to hike into the gorge. It's a really deep hole in the ground. It's like a mile hike in, but it's almost straight down. And you release these fish into the river. It seems like a big publicity thing, but it brings people from everywhere. About 300 people from northern New Mexico, but also from neighboring states. And we realized that Cuesta was not capturing any of that action. People were coming through town, and Cuesta was just sitting there. And I and my economic development partners, we thought, well, we should capture some of this. Or at the very least, we should recall kind of this fish's role in these northern New Mexico communities. And in so doing, we kind of realized that, kind of like the cutthroat, some of these northern New Mexico cultures, and that includes the Taos Pueblo, the land grant communities, largely Hispanic, the cultures have been pushed to the headwaters too. So there was this real nexus between the culture and the fish, and a lot of the community leaders were just kind of thinking, that fish is an actual cultural icon. So we launched that video, and that kind of thinking has really informed things since. Like with the reconstruction of this church that fell down.
Yeah.
That was done with about 450,000 volunteer hours. There was one paid contractor, but everything was pretty much donated. The village rebuilt that church pretty much on a volunteer basis.
Wow, it's such an amazing
a lot of these stories were
yeah.
just blowing me away.
Blowing me away. I'm almost speechless for words. And the story that you're telling, it's just so crazy, and this, how everyone came together in the restoration, and now you have the native trout back in the waters and everything like that. So I think my question is I have a few questions, but I think my biggest question is, what can we do today to help maintain and prevent this from happening again? And what can we do today if someone wanted to get involved today to help with this project?
Well, I think without shameless plugging, I am shamelessly plugging.
Go ahead.
But I think a Trout Unlimited membership is just simply that angling interested people should have. Mm-hmm. If your gig is bonefish, I know there are bonefish groups. If your gig is tarpon, do that. But I think generally speaking, as anglers, a Trout Unlimited membership is a really basic thing to have. like a rod and a reel, basically, because what it boils down to is you're basically getting a subscription to a magazine, but the magazine tells you about all the kinds of things that you can or that go into productive fisheries, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely.
So what that means is, there are Trout Unlimited chapters that take a really strong interest in helping veterans groups, helping inner city groups. So there, and it's really fun to be in a Trout Unlimited chapter. If you want to go the extra step, is become a board member in a chapter. Definitely, you don't have to do that, but the membership gets you this magazine where you can look and say, "Wow, this kind of stuff is going on," and I like trout fishing, and you probably find, Greg, that just the little things that you do in association with your love of fishing, it's really not a lot of skin off your back, but but you actually, it's not even about feeling good. It's about the kind of cost of maintenance, I guess, and that's what the Quest experience did for me. I've always been, like I said, I've been a fishing guide for a long time. But I didn't really get involved so much in TU until I realized, like, well, this is what I make my living off of, these resources, and these resources aren't going to take care of themselves. So I think that's the basic thing, is get a TU membership. The other thing is actually consider ways that you can be involved. And again, like I said, I think finding some way to help communities next to your favorite fisheries, I think that's another good place to start. And then from there, I think you're just going to get your own ideas.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Toner, it truly is amazing, the work you've done and whatnot, and it's a great way to sum it up. But I want to circle back to Questa here and really quickly, like, what's the big picture? Like, are you done there? Are you still focusing on growing it more? Ideally, say money was no object. What would you like to see happen there?
Well, Trout Unlimited is kind of runs on 4. I think we might have reduced them, but they're kind of 4 mantras, which is we protect resources, reconnect resources, restore them, and sustain. I think the work in Quest is going to be done when the community is, and they're pretty much there, but when the community is in a position to say, oh, okay, fishing is basically part of our new mine. It's the thing that delivers gross receipts tax to our community. It employs certain people in our community, be they from the coffee shop or fishing guiding or something like that, where you have a kind of a core group that says fishing is really like, it's like a core principle in this town. It puts food on our table, and we're going to maintain that. Mm-hmm. So that's the sustain component of TU. So when the village is kind of going, we've got it, we're good, then, I think as a responsible conservation professional, that's when I say, okay, I need to move on. I mean, it's a pet project of mine. I would love to be in that community for a very long time, but I think Trout Unlimited has a lot of work to do in a lot of places, and this concept, Questa, was one town, but we were hoping to build some kind of community model that we could take elsewhere. Yeah. There are a lot of northern New Mexico communities that are struggling for economic sustenance.
It's funny. I was gonna ask you that. I was gonna ask you, once this is complete, if you would replicate this model as your new role of water and habitat program director somewhere else within the state of New Mexico.
Yeah. And the other thing is that there are towns in New Mexico that are in worse shape than Cuesta that did not have kind of a patron like Chevron.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Chevron has been really helpful.
It sounds like it for
in terms of,
yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and they helped the village build an industrial park, which you know, it's kind of light industry, but you know, they've helped with that. They've helped with their food bank. They help with their substance and alcohol abuse center, and Chevron's been really helpful. But not every town in northern New Mexico has a Chevron.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's kind of a matter of the next place we go. And honestly, Greg, I've been kind of going to communities meanwhile, while this Cuesta thing has been going on. I've been working in other communities to see where we can help. So we're kind of started, but it's been really rewarding. And I think a lot of it, you know, with TU is the kind of, there's that reconnect thing I said, I talked about. Some of this is kind of reconnecting folks with their kind of ancestral cultures. So, you know, it's way more human-based than I thought I would ever get. In fact, I mean, sometimes I'm like, wait, I'm supposed to work for Trout.
Yeah, that's why I love this story, Toner. Right? Like, that's exactly why I think I'm so drawn to this story. Is, you know, I know when we had spoke about it, and when I was introduced to the story, I was like, you know, a lot of, and we're doing these 3 Trout Unlimited stories. This is just such a different fit, because it does have that human element in that complete restoration, the community as well in their aspect in the habitat part of it. So I mean, so cool. So definitely you guys have done well on that. So, you know, Toner, before I let you go, what are some final words you'd like to say?
Gosh, I don't know. Well, I guess I'll say this. I'm going to get off this phone and I'm going to go back to work and everything. And I've enjoyed this conversation, but I'm going to go back to work helping Trout in a time when we're dealing with this coronavirus. And I go, well, how important are trout at the end of the day to this whole discussion, given what's going on in the world? And in the last few days, I've thought, well, they're very important because the trout have kind of led me to this human experience, and it's given me great lessons into what communities mean and what they're capable of and that kind of thing. So it really gives me great pleasure to know that my work is still relevant in these troubled times. May they end soon.
Well said, Toner. I agree with that. If someone wanted to reach out to you or your chapter, how would they contact you guys?
My personal email address is toner.mitchell@tu.org. That's my Trout Unlimited email address. Otherwise, people can go to the TU website and cruise around. They could find this video there and other materials and get lots of good info on how they want to be involved or learn more.
Absolutely. And Toner, I'm going to make sure I put all that in the show notes and all the details there as well. So I definitely want to thank you, and I want to thank you guys for all the hard work you guys have done out in Cuesta as well. So audience, thank you guys as well. And I'll let you guys go.
Thank you, Greg.
You've been listening to the Fly Fishing Insider podcast. If you like this podcast episode, please let us know. Leave a review and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast listening platform.